my story, and it helps other people, give them some hope, like I was given hope when I used to CAA. So and now I've been preaching now 15 years. God brought me to my knee to preach. At first I was scared. I didn't think I was worthy. But after talking to Dr. G.V. Clark, one of the big men here in Austin, then he convinced me that, George, when the Holy Spirit called on you again, you called me. And so that's what I did. I've been preaching. I started out under him. I was licensed by him. And now I've been ordained for a year and a half by Pastor Clarence Jones at the church I serve as the associate pastor now, Greater St. John. And so that's my story.
That is awesome. That is an awesome story. Now let me ask you one other question.
Sure, have yourself.
How do you feel that racism plays into your story?
Well, like I said, that lawyer that came to see me when I was in the Walls Unit Hospital, I became a big figure after I came out that hospital. Because I heard the guards talking, but that's that boy that got hurt, when they was bringing me back in the ambulance with a nurse. Then they come sending a supposed to be lawyer to me to sign some papers saying they was gonna release me. And then and they didn't release me then. That's where racism came in. He started talking about me after I signed the paper, degrading me. He did.
I see.
And then they didn't let me out. And that's one of the ways racism. And then another way is my lawyer, he was bought out evidently by the state of Texas. And I'll say that because he jumped on this case and filed for $4 million. I have documents and a stack of records. They say I was one of the biggest cases that ever came through John Seeley Hospital. And then racism became a problem too, I think, I don't know, I'd like to say, well, Dr. Mitchell Wong made a mistake. He should have sent me on to a doctor when he couldn't figure out what was wrong with his left eye. And come to find out it had a staph infection in it, one of the worst kind that I had caught when I was at Southwest Texas University, sitting beside a girl in the zoology lab, and she had the horriblest cough, and the spirit kept telling me, George, move, get away from her. And then I had to look into these, we was looking at slides and insects. That's when I caught that staph infection. He should have sent me to another doctor then, but he didn't.
I see.
So that's where I think racism came into play in my life.
Sure. That sounds interesting. So even in your search for justice, there were some things you decided not to pursue, but you know that some instances of racism did happen throughout your case and throughout your life. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I should have sued. And I tell you something, that Dr. Henry R. Muller should have sued the pharmaceutical company behind that medicine, Gridiophobin, that caused all of this to happen, the Stephen Johnson syndrome. I don't know if he did. I know he sued the state, that doctor, and they hid him, took him away from the wall. Okay. He wasn't there when I came back out of John Seeley,
So, based on your story, what would you tell someone else?
I would tell someone else, please, don't throw away the bottles of medicine. Be sure you keep up with what you take. And to rely on God instead of that doctor. Because it's a lot of medicine. The way society has turned now, a lot of doctors, if you don't have an internal doctor, well, if you just go to a clinic, or just any doctor, they practice medicine, dispensing medicine, writing prescriptions. And that's why there's so many reactions to medicine. It's happened to a lot of people now, according to what I've been hearing. So I would tell people to really keep up with the medication they're taking and maybe get a diagnosis from more than one doctor.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I also wanted to ask you, how do you feel now about sharing your story? How do you feel about that?
I feel real good. I feel great because this is something I've been wanting to share with other people or with the press for years, you know. And I'll tell you something, I used to think about it. My sister and them, they were scared to get me a lawyer out of Austin back then, you know, because of prejudice. Prejudice, that's another thing. They were scared. They thought that those folks were going to kill me down there. And see, and so I even thought about getting that, it was a journalist in Houston. I forget his name, y'all might have heard of him. He was quite a journalist. He would take stories like mine, and I mean, he would blow it up, he'd shoot it on the press, and the people would get justice behind it. I forget his name now. I thought about even calling him for my story. I thought about it, because I was badly hurt, you know, badly messed up, and didn't get nothing out of it.
Yes.
But I thank God, he saved my life. Like I say, I suffered 2 cardiac arrests. Dr. Clark and another nurse, a lady, told me, God snatched you out of the grips of death just in time, and because he wanted to use you for his glory. And that's what I've been letting him do ever since I've been reborn over 30 years. It happened at Shoal Creek Hospital in 1987. And I've been telling my story to men and women who suffer from alcohol, drug addiction like I did. At the old Travis County Jail, I started off there, the new jail, Dale Valley, 969, Kyle, Gatesville, to all the women units and the youth unit. I just love to share my experience, my strength, and my hope. And hope that it will help give those people some hope that they can come out from under their addiction, just like God brought me out from under mine. I go with other men and women. I got so many friends, real friends, all different colors now. White, Hispanic, black. I've been in the support group of AA over 30 years now. And I'm celebrating 30 years in Al-Anon this month, the sister program of AA.
Wonderful.
Learning me how to just take care of myself and don't try to force my thoughts off on nobody else. Let everybody come to their own, you know, realization of freedom, like God been freed from bondage of self and of Satan since I've been reborn. I've learned a whole lot through support groups and through the Bible since I've been reborn.
That is awesome.
So that's kind of my story. One thing I'd like to say, God has been wanting me to write, and a lot of people that know about my life and know what done happened in my life and been knowing a lot, they've been encouraging me to write. I need to write before I die. I think I could do 2 books.
All right.
And then women have told me, say, if you put the credit down, and men, they said, we'll take it and put it together. So I need to get to writing. I really do. Because I think my story, oh Lord, I could tell y'all some things would blow your mind. The things that I did when I was a drug addict. And I'm just thankful to God he saved my life. I could have been shot down by the police and killed, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just blessed, y'all, blessed that God saved my life. I'm just truly blessed.
That is awesome. You know, I tell you, Reverend Gordon, you've got a very, very powerful story. And just the way that you've described it, the spiritual impact, you know, your faith,
yes, ma'am,
and the way you were able to use your trust in God to actually get through these things and even give hope to others.
Right.
So, as far as this is concerned, what is your faith background?
I would say that again.
What is your faith background?
My faith background, I'm a Baptist.
Okay.
My faith background is now I'm saved. Like I say, I surrendered my will to God at Shoal Creek Hospital when I finally surrendered and went over there for treatment. And I found God in a room one night. It brought me to my knees in tears after I read this book about Bill and the AA and how he suffered. And that's when God told me to come over here and get on your knees. And I was scared, y'all.
Right.
But I did what he told me, and I started confessing I recognize his divinity, which I always believed in him. That's one thing I don't want to leave out.
Right.
And I've shared that with many audiences in prison and in churches as I speak.
Right.
I've always believed in God, and I was nurtured by my father and my mother and in churches. But I turned my back and walked away from my belief when I got married when I was 18. And that's where all hell broke loose. So I always encourage men and women when I'm telling my story, don't never, and a lot of them agree with me that they turn their back on their faith, that their belief.
Right.
I didn't know him like I know him now, but I believed ever since I was young. And so I'm glad that he saved my life. He knows the soul and the hearts of every man and woman.
Yes.
See, and that's why he saved my life first, snatched me out of the grips of death. 2 cardiac arrests, like I told you, and then brought me to my knees in 1987. And now my life has been totally different since then. I've been a servant of him.
That is awesome.
And I share my story with a lot of men and women to try to encourage them. Because one of my gifts is that I found out that I have, I'm a motivator. He used me to motivate men and women out of, to kind of give them some direction. You understand?
Yes, sir.
I'm a motivator.
Yes, sir.
That's one of my gifts.
Well, I tell you, the beautiful thing about your story is you've answered.
Pardon?
I said you've answered all of my questions through your story, which is awesome.
Thank you.
So I just want to ask now,
Sure.
is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, God is, one other thing I'd like to add, God has blessed everything that happened for me that I've always wanted since I was a teenage boy growing up in St. John. I've always wanted to be able to pack something into the stream of life through other people to help men and women. And so when I first started to college, my major was sociology, my minor was psychology. You understand?
Yes, sir.
And then after I got an associate degree in human services, counseling and addiction in 1998, I marched across Frank Irwin's stage twice. But then God, he was pulling at me about preaching, and I ran from him for about 7 years, but women kept putting a finger on me, and men started putting a finger on me too. They could see he wanted me to preach. I ran, but finally I surrendered. And Dr. Clark told me, well, George, you're going to finish that degree in that drug, and he said, all of us need a degree in that. He said, but if the Spirit pull at you about preaching, call me. So that's what I had to do.
That's awesome.
So I've been preaching now over 15 years, and it's been tough being, after I lost all my physical sight. But I tell you something, there was a psychiatrist, Betty Huffman, over here at the University of Texas at the Flon building. She'd been retired now about 10 or 15 years. She sent me to a psychiatrist named King over on Mopac, and he gave me the key to overcome the loss of the physical sight. He told me, here's what he told me, I'll share this and then I'm through.
Yes.
He said, George, he said, Betty tells me that you've been in AA for a while and that you found a higher power and that you really have a good relationship with a higher power. I said, that's right. I was scared when he was talking to me. This was the first week I had lost all my sight. And I was kind of traumatized,
Yes, sir.
And so he said, she tells me that you've helped other men to recover too. I said, yes, sir, yes, sir. He said, well, how did you feel when you lost your sight? Were you scared? Did you think somebody was in the room going to get you? I said, yes. He said, did you think when you were left by alone, your heart was going to bust? I said, yes. He said, did you think that you were abandoned? I said, yes. He asked me about 4 or 5 questions. And I answered yes to all of them. You know what he told me? God used him to help me tremendously, because blind women and men had helped him when he first went into this field. He said, you know what, George? He said, just like you recovered from your drug addiction by telling yourself, I don't want to use this stuff no more. Use the same 12 steps. He said, all you got to do is reprogram your thinking and say, I'm not alone. I'm not abandoned. Nobody's going to bother me. He told me about 4 or 5 things. He said, just say it to yourself over and over, silently. I said, is that right? And I caught it. I sat there and caught what he was telling me. And I say, if that's true, then any man or woman can reprogram their thinking from any fear. He said, that's right. I learned something from this doctor. So that's what I started doing. And that's how I overcame the loss of my physical sight. Another thing he told me, he said, George, you have physical sight. You have spiritual sight.
Yes.
And that's more powerful than physical sight. He said, so you're not blind. This is what this guy told me. And that started lifting me up. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir, I do.
And I never will forget that. Then I went on into Chris Cole, which is a very powerful training center. I need to add that. It's a very powerful training center that I went into twice at 4800 North Lamar, Sunshine Entrance, right up the street here. And they helped me tremendously to get back into college, to overcome my fear, and to start working with things, a computer, calculators, other things, reading Braille, to learn how to live without physical sight. That's a very powerful institute
Yes, it
over there,
is.
Chris Cole.
Wow.
Thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask?
That's the best I can tell y'all right now.
That is awesome.
I just need to write some books. I got so much stuff, I tell you.
That sounds awesome. My partner also has a question for you as well.
Real quick question
Sure,
for you,
go
Reverend
ahead.
Gordon. I don't know if I caught it early on. Could you restate how old you were when you went into the prison system and how old you were when you came out?
Okay, I did go in twice behind drugs. The first time was 1976. It was all behind drugs. If I hadn't been on drugs, I never would have went because of my moral values and the way I was raised. I think I must have been about 26, 25, 26 before I failed. I didn't fall when I was 17, 18, 19, 20 like a lot of young guys. I think I was about 24, 25. And the boss even down there in the field said, he really thought a lot of me. He said, George, how did you get into this? You seem different from these other young men down here that they had me in the field squad with. He really respected me. I had to get on him about that running out the back of the building out to the gate. I got on him, and he respected me about that. He sure did. And the second time I went, I came home for a year and 10 months and started fooling with the same. I made the mistake of what I had heard in the program of AA, those guys that were coming in, and that's what I always been sharing with these men and women when I go and speak all these years, these 30 years. Don't go back fooling with the same people, places, or things. You have to change. You have to get real friends. You can't go back to the same playpens. And you can't go back, you have to change the people, places, and things to really recover, to start a recovery process. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
But that's where I made a mistake. I went back fooling with the same people, places, and things. A girl I knew from the streets, and she got out before I did, and she stuck the spike right back in my arm. I was a fool. And so a year and 10 months later, it's just like, and that's what causes recidivism, I might add to y'all. That's what causes men and women to have this recidivism rate in penitentiary going back, because they go back fooling with the same people, places, or things. It could even be family. So when one is addicted, they need to just get away from even their family if they're addicted or not spiritually led. You understand?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
They have to change places, go to a different place, start all over, a new life, okay?
Yes.